Good morning. Good morning. What a pleasure. So nice to see you. Thank you very much for joining Backchannel. I'm Anthony, and this is the only place where you can go to basically talk back to your hosts whenever you want. So you just do that in a very simple way. You just turn to your Amazon device and you just say whatever the wake-up word is, followed by say, followed by your message. And then, you will suddenly hear me. Carla, could you put your headphones on? Because I can hear myself coming through your computer. And that's making me crazy. Thank you so much. So I just wondered if you have a couple of hours to spare. Maybe you'd like to hang out this morning. We're just going to, just put the world to rights, see where things land. Just do our best, as only we know how. And if you have a device that is not an Echo Show, a device with a screen, then I would really like you to do what we recommend, which is going to YouTube, and you can watch the stream there as well. Always helpful to watch the stream on YouTube. So, just jump in, send us a message that way, or go to the web chat facility. That's at backchannel.tv. You can get that up on your phone as well, and you can message me throughout the show. So we're going to jump straight into the morning papers this morning. So many newspapers to review. We always start with the Los Angeles Times, so that's how we're going to start this morning, and see what's happening in this crazy town they call LA. Such a crazy town. I love it, but wow, this place is crazy. It's not unusual to see people walking down the street like in a wedding dress and a beard and their pajamas underneath in the middle of the day drinking a frappuccino. Quite normal, you see? This is the joys of Los Angeles. Nothing's alive on that tree. Inside a scorched Sequoia grove is the headline, and a photograph of the trees here in the Sequoia, the national park. And they reckon 20% of the tree's population may have been lost to 3 wildfires. It says it looks like a bomb has gone off in the vast stand of giant sequoias on a mountain ridge in the southern Sierra. Charred trees rose, some stripped of leaves and eerily skeletal in Kings Canyon National Park's Redwood Mountain Grove. Ash hung in the air and clawed at visitors' throats on a chilly afternoon in November. So that's what we're dealing with now. This is how climate change is affecting everything, including 200-year-old trees. Hi, Charlie. Thank you for joining us. Charlie's in New Jersey. If you'd like to jump on and be part of the chat, then you know how to do that anytime. Just, say the word, and then I'll say the word. Just put words into my mouth is what I'm saying to you. So, let's move on with the front of the LA Times, because I don't want to talk about charred trees. Charlie, have you ever grown a tree, and how's it doing? Because I think I actually own a tree in England somewhere. I think like a weeping willow tree was dug in for me. So maybe, Charlie, you had a tree grown in your name, like I did. I remember a little tag being round this little weeping willow tree. The trunk couldn't have been more than a couple of inches across because it was a baby tree when it was planted. And I remember the tag being round it with my name on it. It was a thing we did at school. And I thought, I wonder how that tag is going to grow as the tree grows. So, Charlie, if you're somebody who's like, maybe you're a tree hugger like me, put your arms around a tree, give it some love, get in touch with nature. Because people do that. If you touch the bark of a tree, you can actually feel like you're in touch with nature. We should be doing that more often. Hi, Stacey. Thank you for joining us this morning. Nice to know that your afternoon for you, of course. It's on the East Coast. You're in Texas, but Eastern time, currently noon or 4 minutes after noon. Yes, I'm ready for your lunch hour, Stacey. I am ready. So it's so nice that you come back each day and spend your lunch hour with me. There's so many other things you could be doing. So this is a true test of our friendship. Also, defiant eateries, a test of county powers. It says some restaurants have flouted COVID rules, leading to lawsuits and fines even after losing a permit. A few hold out. Again and again, public health inspectors returned to the Italian restaurant at the Westlake Village shopping centre It always worries me when I read stories like this. I'm just like, which Italian restaurants have I been to recently? And should I have had the clams? Should I have had the spaghetti vongole? Probably not. They found Novo Cafe serving diners indoors and out, despite a Los Angeles County order forbidding it during the worst wave of the pandemic. According to county records, over and over they handed out citations with a $500 fine. Well, that's a lot of spaghetti vongoles to sell. It says in February, the county revoked the restaurant's public health permit. Novo Cafe stayed open. I mean, the defiance is it does make me laugh. Because there are some people, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but there are some people for whom the pandemic is not a thing. It simply doesn't exist. They think the whole thing is made up. So they're just like, yeah, pandemic, whatever. Spaghetti vongole? This is what they're doing. This is delicious. It says this summer, co-owner Massimo Forti told an NBC4 News crew who filmed unmasked workers in the restaurant that he saw adhering to mask requirements as a sign of submission. As of early November, Novo Cafe has been fined $86,000 for scores of citations, and none of those have been paid. He doesn't care. He just doesn't care. That's all it is. He just doesn't care. I mean, the worrying thing is he's probably going to care when they show up with handcuffs for unpaid fines and put him in county jail. That's my worry, is that what's he waiting for? I know a few people that are just like, is it Friday, Carla? Of course, yesterday was Thanksgiving. I should actually have started this program with a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. But I don't know. I'm all over the place at the moment. You know, there's a lot going on. It's 7 after 9. This is Backchannel. It's Friday morning. The weekend starts tomorrow. Thanksgiving was yesterday. And if you'd like to get involved, you know how to get involved. Just get involved. Talk to your Echo device, say, then you message. then, of course, you can do the usual. Just go to backchannel.tv and just chat away. Do it on your phone even. Chat away with me. Stacey said I spent Thanksgiving with my brother Dakota. Well done. Hopefully, Dakota made you a fantastic spread. I did all the cooking yesterday. I cooked for like 14 people. It was virtually a super spreader event in my house. And I cooked the whole thing vegan. The whole thing was vegan, apart from the turkey. So all of the butter that I used in all of the veg, everything, all vegan. Not a solitary animal product. And it meant that if you wanted to eat the meat, you could. But otherwise, I had a plant-based roast. Really good one. Did a lot of research to find out which was the most edible. Because often these things are kind of inedible. Oh, Dakota did make a wonderful dinner. That's great. I don't know that I did anything traditional, though. You know, I didn't do yams. I didn't do mashed potato. I didn't do green beans. These are all the traditional Thanksgiving snacks. I didn't do any of those things. So I really feel like it was more of a British Christmas dinner that we had on Thanksgiving yesterday. We had crackers. we had crackers. We had party games. Someone said to me, "Did you go around the table and give thanks?" I was like, "No. Were we supposed to?" I'm not yet fully compliant in the traditions, but I'm working on it. This tea is delicious. I don't know who made this. Thank you so much for the tea. California's most adventurous wolf meets a tragic end. Also on the front of the LA Times this morning, wolf advocates across the nation were brooding over the bad news this week, the epic journey of a lone grey wolf that ventured from Oregon to the very edge of Southern California's crowded suburbs in search of territory and female mates has ended in a vehicle collision near Interstate 5 in the Kern County town of Lebec. That's a shame. There's a lot of wolf fans, you know? Michael J. Fox. A lot of wolf fans. Stepping stone to Europe became migrants' ordeal. It says desperate Iraqis say they were tossed like a football in the skirmish between Belarus and EU. Sitting in a two-room apartment above his uncle's office, 25-year-old Hussein Shamari said there wasn't much left of him in Iraq. He'd graduated from law school 2 years before, still had no job. He had lived through war and sectarian violence, but when his brother died of the coronavirus this year, it broke him. He said, "My soul died with him. I couldn't imagine staying. I felt it was time to go and do something." So, this is the story of desperate Iraqis, you know? Desperate to get into the EU via Belarus, and of course the Belarusian police are pushing them back, and it's just relentless there. It's been going on now for months. And finally, mystery cards against captivity. Years after he sued SeaWorld, a lawyer is baffled to get a series of postcards signed by the park's animal stars. In 2018, says Matthew Struger received a postcard from a whale. The card came out of an old SeaWorld tourist pack, the kind with glossy pictures of animals doing tricks, purchased for excited kids by worn-down parents, then tossed in a drawer when vacation is over. Its front showed two orcas, one big, one juvenile, jumping gracefully from the confines of their chlorine blue pool as sunburnt 1980s patrons in tank tops snapped photos and gawked. And the back carried a plea for help. On the other side of the message is a photo of the humiliating activities that our captors force us to perform. Perhaps you can use this as evidence. Thank you for all the work you do for us. Sincerely, your imprisoned orca clients. It's very interesting, isn't it? Whole bunch of postcards sent to this lawyer by the orcas themselves. You see, this is like modern day activism. This is what you have to do. You know, you have to like shake it up a bit. Can't do traditional protest anymore because that often ends in either violence or somebody getting murdered, clearly. So we have to be smarter. We have to protest from the comfort of our own homes, whether it's sending postcards or whether it's doing a live stream, you know, whatever it is you choose to do. It must be done safely. Maybe peaceful protest is like a phrase to be confined to history. You know, maybe that's the problem now. If BLM go out and protest, then there's going to be some Proud Boys on duty. Or vigilantes, even. Maybe this is the thing we have to think about now. Like, how can we make a difference without compromising our health and safety? Big subject. Okay, so that's the LA Times this morning. If there's a newspaper where you are that you would like me to read from, then just let me know. I'll do my best to, give it a little review on this show. Got me for another couple of hours, so, take your time. The Wall Street Journal this morning leads with a photograph of the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade, and it's a lovely-looking parade. My daughter wanted to watch it. I can't remember what time it started. Is it like 9 o'clock in the morning or something? Anyway, by the time it was 9 o'clock in the morning here, it was already noon over there, which meant that she'd missed it. So I'm going to have to show it to her on the YouTube. Lined up, spectators turn out for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which featured new balloons as it's made its way through Manhattan. Well, I'm pleased they used new balloons. Nothing worse than getting those old balloons, those little limp balloons with no air left in them, and using them from 3 years ago. That's no good. You've got to have new balloons. Online retailers demand real store locations. This is an interesting story that says after losing ground to e-commerce, bricks and mortar stores are back in style. Yes, retailers this year are expected to open more stores than they close for the first time since 2017, according to an analysis of more than 900 chains by IHL Group, a research and advisory company. Most of the growth is coming from mass merchants, food, drugs, and convenience chains. Department stores and specialty retailers, which experienced the biggest shakeout over the past 5 years, are still closing more stores than they are opening. But the pace of closures has slowed from record levels. And it says, behind the shift are changing views about the value of physical stores, industry executives and analysts said. It's very interesting to me. I mean, I don't know. I don't like going into shops, I'll be honest. I haven't really been into a shop for a while. I've been almost into a shop just to have the hot air blow me, you get a blow dry just as you're going in, and then you just step straight back out again. But it just doesn't really do it for me. I buy my clothes on the internet. They always look like they're going to fit in the picture. And when they arrive, of course, you're like, oh, I suppose I could get one leg into that. But I've actually only shopped for clothes in the same one singular store for the last 17 years. Just one store. Don't go anywhere else. Just one solitary store. And I've been asked, why? Why? And the way I feel about it is that store serves all my needs, but also the time that we spend browsing, window shopping, desperately trying to reinvent ourselves and then just defaulting back to our old uniform could be better spent doing other things. It's a bit like, all of my bills, monthly payments, the whole thing is automated. It's all on direct deposit and it's all done. I don't want to sit and write checks. I want to do other stuff. So if there is a way to automate it, if there is a way to simplify it, if there is a way to do less so that you can have more time to yourself and to have a good time, or to read, or to interact, or to be social, or to spend time with family, then that's what we should be doing. Prioritizing, living. I often say, are you alive or actually living? Pick one. Charlie says your room looks great. Thanks. We've done a bit of work in here recently. Rather proud of it, looking good. Might hang a few pictures. Put a little water feature in the corner, maybe. Stacey says, I go to one store to do my shopping. Where there's a will, there's a way. Well, I always say where there's a will, there's a lawyer. Defying the Taliban, Afghans teach girls. It's a story out of Kabul. It says a group of teenage girls filed quietly into Fawazia's house, took off their shoes and gathered in the living room for a clandestine history lesson. Fawzia, who asked to be identified only by her first name, talked about Afghanistan's fabled treasure, the Backchannel gold. And its kings and queens. The 56-year-old teacher sees her new secret work with teens as essential. It says when the Taliban started reopening public schools in September, they banned girls from attending beyond the 6th grade. Since then, middle and high schools in a few provinces have reopened to girls, but in Kabul and most of the country, they remain shut. I mean, this is the concern, isn't it, for Afghanistan? Because they've already brought in a whole bunch of rules now, new rules. Initially, they were like, oh, it's going to be fine. We're not the old Taliban. We're the new Taliban. We're the new improved Taliban. We have a much more open, respectful, even playing field. Gender equality, we're the new Taliban. Da-da-da, don't judge us. Leave all your equipment and get the hell out of here. We got this. That's basically what they said. Meanwhile, 2 months later, all the old Taliban tropes are coming back, aren't they? All the old Taliban stuff's coming back because people don't change. They default to what they know. And so now Afghanistan tragically is going to be wound back in time. It's very sad. And so a teacher, a 56-year-old teacher, is having to operate a clandestine history lesson in a secret classroom so that women can get an education. Ken has joined us. Hello, Ken. Thank you for joining Backchannel. 9:20 here on the West Coast. I'm in California. Where are you? Florida. Oh, nice. Lovely. Surging COVID-19 presents Europe with hard choices. It says the European Union is confronting an ugly reality as COVID-19 infections and deaths in the region eclipse those in the US. Taming the Delta variant is proving harder than a virus-weary continent had hoped. Fast-rising COVID-19 contagion in parts of Europe, including Germany, is sparking fears of another winter of full hospitals. Countries are rushing to roll out booster shots as evidence accumulates that last summer's vaccinations are losing some of their efficacy. I mean, we're going to talk about this shortly, but I really feel like Delta is ancient history now. It's all about to change again. You know, we used to see Delta as the scariest thing. Well, you know, there's a new enemy now coming out of South Africa, and this is the concern: is that, you know, when they discover a new strain, and this one they found is way more deadly than Delta, they discover it probably several months after it's already started to spread. They don't discover the first case. They're not like, oh look, here's a new one, let's close the airspace. They just happen to have tested someone that's got it. It's already in the community. People have been flying on airplanes from South Africa to America and Europe for the last, however many months since they opened the airspace. So to think it's not here already would be foolish. It's a little bit like when Donald Trump tried to take credit of closing the airspace from China, thinking that's it. The coronavirus is over. I've closed the airspace to China. There's like 12 flights a day from China just into Los Angeles. Come on. It's like there's so many airlines flying all over the world all the time with people from all different nationalities picking up strains here, there, and everywhere. And that's why we have to wear a mask. And that's why we have to get vaccinated. And that's why we have to socially distance. All of these things are connected to containing the spread of a pandemic. And so some selfish guy who owns an Italian restaurant who doesn't believe in coronavirus is really not helping matters. He doesn't get it. Jessica, good morning. Thank you for joining us here on Backchannel. What a pleasure. It's 9:23. So I want to talk a little bit about this new strain that's coming out of South Africa, because it's a big deal. And to think that it's not, or to think that it's going to go away, or to think that it's just another one of these scares is very, very foolish. Because it's the WHO all over this. Dr. Anthony Fauci is all over this. Hi, good morning, Jessica. Global authorities reacted with alarm on Friday to a new coronavirus variant detected in South Africa, with the EU and Britain among those tightening border controls as researchers sought to find out if the mutation was vaccine resistant. And this is really the crux of this, isn't it? Because if it turns out that the mRNA vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, are resistant to this new strain, then they're going to have to come up with a new vaccine. And then we are going to have to do that whole thing of like, new vaccination, more anxiety, more division, more protest, more riots, and then more shootings. It's literally going to cause countries where there is a political division, where the vaccine has been politicized. It's going to cause the effect will be a civil war, because those that are not into this are going to blame the government for more what they would refer to as, what Trump said, the pandemic, coronavirus, it's the Democrats' new hoax. Those were his words. This is their new hoax. Before it was like Russia was their hoax. A very good article in The Atlantic yesterday by David Frum, by the way, who explains exactly why the Russia-Trump story was not a hoax. Very good article in The Atlantic yesterday. David Frum, please read it if you get a chance. So let me read on just a little bit about this new strain. The head of the UN World Tourism Organization called for a quick decision. He said it depends on WHO recommendations, but my recommendation will be to take decisions today, not after 1 week, because if it continues to spread, as we're expecting, it will be late. It'll make no sense to apply restrictions. One South African scientist expert labelled London's ban of a symptom of vaccine apartheid. The European Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen said EU also aimed to halt air travel from the region, and several other countries, including India, Japan, and Israel, toughened curbs. I'm just sending this article to my mum. And the reason I'm sending it is because my family are due to come from England to America in just over 2 weeks' time, 15th of December. And I've said to them, come now. Just come now. Because we don't know what's going to happen. Come stay with me. I don't mind. I'll sleep on the floor if necessary. I'll give you my bed. Just come now. In Washington, top U.S. infectious disease official, Dr. Anthony Fauci. It's a very good documentary about Fauci, by the way, on Disney+. It's just called Fauci. It's all about him and his life, devoting his life to public service. Because, he's hated by the right wing. Fauci is considered the Antichrist to these people. They absolutely despise him. And if you look at the hashtags on Twitter, there's all these death to Fauci and Fauci the liar and all of this stuff. That's what people are consuming. So when a strain that's even more deadly than Delta comes along, what do you think those people are going to do? Who do you think they're going to blame? And is it any wonder that Fauci needs a police escort everywhere he goes now? It's just a scientist. A really good one as well. There was no indication the variant was in the United States, and it was unclear whether it was resistant to current vaccines, said Fauci. The WHO said it would take weeks to determine how effective vaccines were against the variant, which was first identified this week. The news pummeled global stocks and oil amid fears about what new bans would do to the global travel industry and already shaky economies across southern Africa. I tweeted this morning and I said, this pandemic is just getting started. That was in my tweet. And I'm not trying to be dramatic or overly dramatic, but I'm trying to prepare people for the fact that it's not over. We are literally just learning about what this thing is capable of. We had the first strain, then we had the second strain, the Delta strain, which obviously people understood was serious. Now there's a third strain. It's actually more than 3 strains. There are other strains. They just haven't been prominent enough for them to be named yet, to be given a kind of a Greek letter. But this new strain, which is called B11529, which rolls off the tongue, goes up the nose and rolls off the tongue. It's going to be the new one, whatever, Echo or whatever they'll call it. I hope they don't call it Echo, because then your speaker will be going off the whole time. To call it something else. Nikita, thank you for joining us this morning from Texas. Got Nikita with us, Jessica, Ken, Stacy, thank you. It's 9:29 here on the West Coast, 12:29 Eastern, and this is Backchannel. The variant has a spike protein that is dramatically different to the one in the original coronavirus that vaccines are based on, said the UK Health Security Agency, raising fears about how current vaccines will fare. As scientists have described, this is the most significant variant they've encountered to date, said the British Transport Secretary. In Geneva, the WHO, whose experts on Friday discussed the risks that the variant presents, warned against travel curbs for now. Interesting. I'm sending that article to my mother as well. She's getting a barrage of articles this morning. But she likes to be informed, you know? And she's not the kind of person that can change her travel plans on a whim. But I feel like we have to be informed. The whole family are coming, you know? I have a little brother who's coming. I have a whole bunch of family. Sister, brother, stepmother, mother, stepfather, all flying into the US. All booked for the 15th of December. So now they're posed with this ethical dilemma. Do you wait 2 weeks and just see what happens? Or do you rebook now and just get the hell out of there? My mum said to me this morning, she was like, well, what if I can't get back? What if I can't get back into the UK? I was like, you'll get back into the UK. It's called repatriation. You have a British passport? They have to invite you back into the UK. They're not going to say you have to stay in America. Trust me, you'll get back into the UK. But big deal. You get to spend a couple of months in the sunshine. The weather in England is terrible at the moment. So, you know, why not? Carla's sitting there wrapped up in a coat and a sweater and a hat, gloves. This tea is delicious. Thank you so much for this tea. Somebody made me this lovely tea this morning. They didn't really. There's nobody here. It's literally just me. Wouldn't it be nice if I was sitting here and like a hand just came in from the side and just like gave me a tea? I'll be, oh, thank you so much. Not the case. Excuse me. So let's look at this new COVID-19 variant this morning, which has triggered a global alarm as the WHO is urging caution. It's starting in South Africa. Now, this is the thing. They find it in South Africa, and they're like, oh, it must be in South Africa. And I have a theory about this. I have two theories. One theory is, how do we know it started in South Africa? That's where they just found it. But it could have started somewhere else, could have been taken to South Africa. And then South Africa is like a red herring because everybody thinks it started in South Africa because that's where they first discovered the strain. But they're not like, you know, I don't know. I don't want to say too much because I'm not a scientist. But my other theory about this is that the strain is already out and about, like it's already traveled. And the reason for this is because, and this is my second theory, which I think is probably more important than my first theory. Wealthy countries have prioritized the vaccine for themselves. The richest countries in the world have majority vaccination now, over 80%. And the poorer nations, and Africa as a continent as a perfect example, has a relatively low vaccination rate in comparison because they can't get the supply, because the supply has been eaten up by America and UK and Germany and all of these wealthy countries where they can afford, because of course it's a capitalist system, and so the vaccines go to the highest bidder. And so some of the smaller, poorer countries are having to take crappy vaccines from China and from Russia, Sputnik 5. Now, when I say crappy vaccines, they're not crappy vaccines. Arguably they work, but in some cases the efficacy is not as good. And also, can we trust the research? You know, can we trust their peer-reviewed research? Because those are countries famous for their propaganda. So if wealthy countries are stealing vaccine from poor countries and there isn't an even playing field, this is why this COVAX concept has been invented by the WHO, you know, where you share vaccine supply. It means that there will be countries like regions like South Africa where there's not enough people vaccinated and consequently a new variant appears. So this uneven playing field will mean that the poorer nations will get more virus and there will be more strains of virus because there isn't enough vaccine in the community to maintain this kind of herd immunity. You need more vaccine, more vaccinations, more shots in order to prevent the virus from mutating. That's how you stop the virus from taking over the world. Vaccinate everybody. And yeah, okay, you're always going to have your anti-vaxxers and people that are just not into it, you know, like my racist landlord, and that's fine. But more importantly, there'll be many more people who are in poor countries where they cannot get access to Moderna because they're refusing to share the patent, Pfizer and BioNTech, and J&J now people don't even want because it's only 60% efficacy, and so they're having to get booster shots with an mRNA vaccine. The whole genius of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was that it was a single shot. It's okay, you only need a single shot. And they're like, yeah, you need to get a booster. One of the other ones. Just get one of the other ones. Not even Johnson & Johnson is recommending a booster of its own shot. It's like, it's incredible. This tea is delicious. Thank you so much. Stacey says, I'm sorry, but rich people should be a little more careful. We're talking about life and death here. It's a good point. I mean, how would you feel if Joe Biden turned around and said, look, we're only going to vaccinate half the country, just like the vulnerable half, because we're sending the rest to Africa? How do you think that would go down here? Do you think that would make us more divided? A little more racist and xenophobic, maybe? Or would that be akin to more inclusivity? Just posing the question. It's interesting, though, isn't it? So there we are. That's, one of the biggest stories of the morning. We're going to continue looking at that. I want to go back to some of the morning papers, though, just because we're halfway through and I don't want to drop the ball, as they say. Small investors buck worries of inflation, buy growth stocks. It says conventional Wall Street wisdom says inflation, which has been rising all year, is bad for growth and technology stocks. So far, many small investors don't care. Individual investors continue to stampede into shares of growth companies, the types of buzzy stocks that have enjoyed explosive price gains this year. Advanced Micro Devices, Nvidia and Apple are the three stocks most purchased this month by individual investors, according to Vandertrack, a research tracker. Growth stocks are typically companies, often tech firms, that are expected to deliver faster than average profit growth in the future. They tend to flourish in a low-rate environment, including over the past year and a half. Investors are typically willing to take some risks and pay higher prices for such companies when they don't see many alternatives for making sizable profits. So 18 of the stocks that are most favored by individual investors include the chipmakers AMD and Nvidia. They trade on average at nearly 13 times their trailing 12-month sales, according to analysis by the Dow Jones. Yeah, I wish I knew more about stocks and shares. I mean, I have bought some shares recently, just a few, just to practice with. Because there's apps now where you can do it. You don't even have to have a broker or any of that kind of clever stuff you used to have to do. You just do it on an app. And so if you've just got a few dollars, you can just, there's not much you can get for a few dollars these days. I think an Apple share is about $300 or something for a solitary share. A solitary Amazon share is nearer $1,500. It's massive now. It's become this huge in the tech market, huge. So I think that's the Wall Street Journal done. I don't want to hang around with that one. Let's move on to the New York Times. The New York Times, they lead this morning with, here it comes. Well, that looks like that was Wednesday's edition of the New York Times. Why am I looking at the wrong one? That's an old link. Interesting. Okay. Star Tribune in Minneapolis. Let's try that one. What day of the week is that? That's also Wednesday. Oh, these are old links to these newspapers. Well, the LA Times is Friday and the Wall Street Journal is Friday, but everything else seems to be Wednesday. Maybe they haven't put one out yet. Sometimes that happens after a bank holiday. I'm enjoying the tunes this morning. There's some nice beats in the background of this show, don't you think? Okay, I found Friday's New York Times. Here we go. A photograph catching a glimpse of Santa Claus at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade turned into its full 2.5-mile confetti-strewn glory. I do love the strewing of confetti. Whenever I throw it, I like to think of myself as a strooner. You do that? An apple strooner. Also on the front of the New York Times this morning, an Arbery case, legal strategy full of surprise. It says the lawyer was from out of town, a prosecutor who'd spent the bulk of her career in a large liberal city, and she'd been brought in to try the biggest case of her career, the murder of a black man on a sunny afternoon by 3 white men just outside a small city pinned to the South Georgia coastline. Despite the evidence of racism she had at her disposal, Linda Danikowski, the prosecutor, stunned some legal observers by largely avoiding race during the trial, choosing instead to hew closely to the details of how the 3 men had chased the black man, Ahmaud Arbery, through their neighborhood. The risks went beyond her career and a single trial. Failure to convict in a case that many saw as an obvious act of racial violence would reverberate well outside Glynn County. For some, it would be a referendum on a country that appeared to have made tentative steps last summer to award confronting racism, only to devolve into deeper divisions. It says on Wednesday, Ms. Danikowski's strategy was vindicated when the jury found the 3 men guilty of murder and other charges after deliberating for roughly a day. The convicted men, Gregory McMichael, his son Travis, and their neighbor William Bryan, are now facing life sentences in prison. They're also facing trial in February on separate federal hate crime charges. Do you know what the saddest part of this story is that I read? These guys are going to appeal. They're going to appeal. Just accept it. You know, you do the crime, you take the chance, you serve the time. It's on video, boys. It's on video. What are you going to appeal exactly? It's very worrying, isn't it? Anyway, Kevin Goff, the lawyer who represented Mr. Bryan, credited Ms. Danikowski with threading the most difficult of needles. She mentioned a racial motive just once during the 3-week trial. In her closing argument, the men, she said, had attacked Mr. Arbery because he was a black man running down the street. She found a clever way of bringing the issue up that wouldn't be offensive to the right-leaning members of the jury, he said. I think you can see from the verdict that Danikowski made the right call. Very interesting to me. A number of legal experts in the moment, though, thought Mr. Danikowski's strategy to be a risky one, but many in Brunswick thought that she'd proved savvy about what tone to strike in a deep South community where they say race doesn't have to be referenced explicitly for everyone to understand the implications. And a local black businessman, Cedric King, said the evidence against the defendants, particularly the video of Mr. Arbery's murder, had been strong enough to stand on its own. I mean, this is the reality, isn't it? This is the reality. Is that what we're dealing with here is, racism that is so ingrained that it's almost not even necessary to bring it up in the case. It's what systemic racism is. It's ingrained. And people don't understand that it's everywhere. And I'm saying this as a white man. Imagine being a black man or a black female. Doubly more difficult to deal with on a daily basis. Holiday shopping amid unvaccinated workers on the front of the New York Times this morning says the holiday shopping season has arrived and retailers are ringing it in by doing everything from cutting prices to stocking showrooms to lure customers back who stayed at home last year. What the biggest of them are not doing is the one thing the White House and many public health experts have asked them to mandate that their workers be vaccinated. That's delicious. As other industries with workers in public-facing roles, like airlines and hospitals, have moved towards requiring vaccines, retailers have dug in their heels, citing concerns about a labor shortage and a portion of one of the country's largest workforces will remain unvaccinated, just as shoppers are expected to flock to stores. At the heart of the retailers' resistance is a worry about having enough people to work. In a tight labor market, retailers have been offering perks like higher wages and better hours to prospective employees in hopes of having enough people to staff their stores and distribution centers. Yeah. I really don't get the concept of going to a store. I mean, I should do because I want to support retail and high street and all of that stuff, but I just don't want to go into stores. I will be doing all of my Christmas shopping on the internet from the Amazon warehouse. Returned goods, damaged goods, box damaged goods, goods with bits missing. That's where it's at for me. I don't want to get involved in this whole supply chain thing where, potential stuff is stuck on container ships at Long Beach. I want to buy the stuff that's already sitting in warehouses, that's already been tested and tried and returned. I don't want to be part of this machine where you just keep paying into the kind of Chinese exports and US imports. There's enough stuff sitting in warehouses in America that everybody can have everything they want this Christmas. Just think about buying it used. Or used like new. Or used good, or used very good, or used acceptable even. Jessica understands what I'm talking about. This is just the way I want to do it. I don't want to be part of that system. It's 9:46. This is Backchannel. Just pressing a little button on one of my screens. I've got so many screens here. It's like flying the Starship Enterprise. Texas doctors say abortion law complicates risky pregnancies. On the front of the New York Times this morning, it says a few weeks after Texas adopted the most restrictive abortion law in the nation, Dr. Andrea Palmer delivered terrible news to a Fort Worth patient who was midway through her pregnancy. The fetus had a rare neutral tube defect. The brain would not develop, and the infant would die at birth or shortly after. Carrying the pregnancy to term would be emotionally grueling and would raise the mother's risk of blood clots and severe postpartum bleeding, the doctor warned. But the patient was past 6 weeks gestation, and under the new law, an abortion was not an option in Texas because the woman was not immediately facing a life-threatening medical crisis or risk of permanent disability. Unbelievable. So we look at them like a ticking time bomb and wait for the complications to develop, Dr. Palmer said of her patients. In this case, the woman had the means to travel, and she obtained an abortion in another state, an option unavailable to many low-income and working-class women. I mean, maybe that's the key to this whole abortion story. Maybe what this is doing is punishing the poor. And what goes often with the poor is ethnic minority groups, African Americans, people who are not white and wealthy enough to travel to other states to get their abortion. So maybe the type of people who are actually supportive of this abortion or anti-abortion rhetoric, this abortion ban, maybe they're all wealthy, rich, white, have means to travel, and they know that if ever they need to get an abortion, which is highly likely, they can just cross state lines. Go to a blue state and get it done. Because trust me, all the red states are going to ban abortion in time. They are. They're just going to... Every red state will end up copying these extreme laws. And the division will be state by state, you know? So Florida and Texas and Arizona, these places will just be... They'll be like, no abortions there. And the only people that can afford to take time off, enough time off to cross state lines, to fly or to drive, to go to a blue state to get an abortion, will only be the people that have means, not the poorest. And so the immigrant workers, the Mexicans, the people who are doing most of the hard work, the frontline labor, those people will not be able to do this. And they'll have to go through the trauma in these types of scenarios because pregnancy is not perfect. Pregnancy, you're very lucky if you get to a full-term pregnancy without complications. They don't tell you that. I have experience of this. It's like both my children were in intensive care at birth. Both my children. So to kind of have a perfect pregnancy and a perfect delivery might exist in the minds of like wealthy white conservatives, mainly old men. But the reality is that, life isn't that perfect. Even conception isn't that perfect. Texas's new measure was intended to impose stringent limits on abortion, but it's also affecting women who have no desire for termination but are experiencing medically risky pregnancies. Excuse me. So that's the New York Times this morning. That's how that starts on this Friday morning. It's November 26th. It's the day after Thanksgiving, but it's also nearly December. And December brings us a whole new set of problems. The arguments around the Christmas dinner table, it's a whole new set of problems. I haven't seen my mum for 2 years because of the pandemic. Last time I saw her was when I was in London in November 2019. So that's exactly 2 years ago. She hasn't seen her grandchildren for 2 years. And one of them's only 3. So the last time she saw him was when he was 1. So this is what the pandemic has done. It has meant that if you are, if you've migrated, if you're an immigrant, if you're living apart from your hometown, then, you are prevented from seeing your family. And in fact, in England, where I'm from, their lockdown back in March 2020 was so heavily monitored. Wouldn't happen here in America because we're too much championing of freedom. But in England, you couldn't even go and see your grandchildren if they lived 40 miles away. There were grandparents missing out on the birth of their children because they weren't allowed into a hospital. The lockdown was so stringent. Now, we had some lockdowns here in the US, if we went out, we had to wear a mask and we had to eat outdoors. Big deal, we ate outdoors. Big deal. But my point is that, every country handled this differently. And in my situation, it meant that I was prevented from traveling to see my parents and from my parents traveling to see me and their grandchildren. And now we're in this new dilemma where we're hoping to kind of break that cycle next month. And now with this new strain coming out of South Africa, we think it's coming out of South Africa. We assume that's where they've tested the first of these strains. You have to ask yourself, are we going to be prevented from seeing each other again? And are you one of these people who, like me, is like, is the pandemic ever going to go away? Is this it now? Is this it now? It's just like one strain gets dealt with through vaccines and then another strain appears and this is just going to be it now. For the rest of days, till the end of time. Maybe that's what this was supposed to do. Like they say a comet killed the dinosaurs. Well, maybe a pandemic's supposed to... maybe this was the... I don't want to be too morbid about it, but maybe this was the disease that was supposed to wipe out the humans because we destroyed the planet so much. Maybe this was nature fighting back. We invented plastic. We invented that. Maybe this is nature saying you shouldn't have invented plastic. It's been quite unhelpful. You shouldn't have spewed carbon emissions into the atmosphere. This is nature fighting back, sending us a virus. You shouldn't have dug for oil or coal or mined for lithium, cobalt. You shouldn't have done any of those things. This is the virus fighting back, nature turning around to us and going, your time on this planet has expired. You do realize, like, the dinosaurs lived for a lot longer than we did. And you know why? They didn't have opposing thumbs. They couldn't invent carbon emissions. The dinosaurs were around for like millions of years. I mean, what was it? It was 64 million years ago. Maybe they were around for billions of years. And there was a lot of them. There was a lot of dinosaurs. It wasn't just like the 6 you see in the book. There was millions of them. They got wiped out by a comet. Maybe it's our turn to be wiped out by a virus. I'm just saying. It's lucky that we have Dr. Anthony Fauci and scientists, the people that are actually able to come up with vaccines. All I'm saying to you is prepare yourself for the fact that maybe this is it. Maybe this is just the way we're going to have to live now. And that traveling across continents is going to be discouraged. And I just don't know that we, as a capitalist, self-indulgent race, have the ability to wind the clock back and not travel and not shop in shops and not eat indoors in restaurants. I just don't think that long term we have that ability. We're too selfish. As a race, we're just too selfish. So this is why we get vaccinated. And this is why we listen to the science. And this is why we take the advice of government, because they don't want to kill us. They need our money, you know? They need our tax dollars. They want to keep us alive. They want to keep us working. They want to keep us feeding our families. So this is why the few people that don't get it, don't buy into it, and won't get vaccinated, this is why they're going to ruin it for everybody else. It's going to be fine. I mean, Pfizer are already talking today about working on a new vaccine for this new strain coming out of South Africa, if it's necessary. They're already on it. It was only announced yesterday, and they're already on it. And this is why I said to people who are vaccine hesitant, I said, you do realize, they were like, how did it happen so quickly? How did they have vaccines so quickly? I said, you do realize every scientist on the planet who was doing other stuff downed tools and focused on COVID-19. Every scientist on the planet. Any other research project they were doing was like, not necessary. Saving the human race? Necessary. Why do you think Moderna and Pfizer came out with a vaccine around the same time, and AstraZeneca in the UK and Johnson & Johnson in Germany? Why do you think all of this happened at the same time? Because every scientist was on it. And when they're like, oh, how did they do it so quickly? Because they had the manpower. They had the manpower. Every laboratory, every testing site, every petri dish on the planet was in use. And then we had more data than they've ever gathered. Do you remember the testing? Do you remember the huge testing sites? We had one here down at Dodger Stadium. Lines of people in their cars getting tested in seconds. Test, go, test, go, test, go. Data, data, data. Have you ever seen that in your life before? This is how you get a vaccine to market so quickly. You have this enormous amount of data. You have every scientist on the planet focusing on trying to crack this code. And then you have every major pharmaceutical company thinking, we can make a lot of money here. Let's do this. And I don't blame them for that. That's their job. It's their businesses. They're allowed to operate as businesses. So of course they redirect all of their scientists to this vaccine. Because yes, they want to save the human race, but they also want to make a lot of money. And that's capitalism. You choose to live in a capitalist country, then enjoy it. Otherwise, let's all go on holiday to Cuba and have a very nice time driving a 1957 Chevy. I just feel like we need to understand that two can exist at once. You know, the nuance of capitalism and healthcare, like these things coexist here in America and around much of the Western world. So rest assured, with this new strain, which is serious and very very contagious, potentially, that they're already on it. They're already testing it. Fauci is working the phones right now. He is working the phones. What do you know? What can you tell me? Talking to South African, there'll be an equivalent office to his office in South Africa. He's on the phones. The strain is called B11529. Tomorrow, it was Friday. It was last Friday. They were discussing at the WHO in Geneva the risks of the new variant and what the risks would present and how potential travel curbs might be required. At this point, implementing travel measures is being cautioned against, said the WHO spokesperson Christine Liedmeyer. It would take several weeks to determine the variant's transmissibility and the effectiveness of vaccines, noting that 100 sequences of it have been reported so far. British Health Minister Sajid Javid said the sequence of the variant was first uploaded by Hong Kong from someone travelling from South Africa. Oh, it's already in Hong Kong. We might do our US news update in just a minute. Just to give me a minute so I can compose myself. Steve's joined us, TJ's joined us, Amy's joined us, Jessica's joined us. Thank you very much for spending your morning with Backchannel. It's just after 10. I'm Anthony Davis. It's the Anthony Davis Show here between Monday and Friday, 9 and 11. If you want to get in touch, then you just have to talk to your device in the usual way. To your Echo, just say the wake-up word, followed by say, and then your message. Or use our chat facility at backchannel.tv. And finally, if you're watching on YouTube, because this is streaming live on YouTube, then of course you can use the comments section there as well and chat to us in the usual way. Stacey has to go. It's time for her to take a bath. So thank you, Stacey. Appreciate your time this morning. Sorry it was just a short hour, but you have a good soak and think about us as you do that. We've been talking about, we've been looking at the morning papers this morning, but also talking about this new strain in South Africa. And if this is something that concerns you, how about you getting another vaccine? Like if you're already boosted, if you've had 3 vaccines already, and they said, okay, we've got a 4th vaccine now. We've got another one potentially for you. Would you consider taking another vaccine for this new strain? Or are you done? Maybe you can let me know. Maybe you can send me a little message and tell me if you would be open to having more vaccine inside you. Do you think about, what's it doing inside my body? Does it worry you? A lot of people are hesitant. But the science is, there's nothing to worry about. In fact, there was data out yesterday from the UK that said that pregnant women have nothing to worry about taking the vaccine. Because about only 22% of women were vaccinated when they were giving birth, because they were frightened of what the vaccine might do to their child. Well, it turns out that actually it's completely safe. I do think a lot of our issues regarding this hesitancy is in our minds rather than scientifically documented. It's a natural human anxiety. It's a natural response, isn't it? To care about our own bodies, what we put in. But saying that, we eat potato chips like it's going out of fashion. That's not very good for us. So, what difference? I mean, we abuse our bodies in so many other ways that actually a vaccine is probably one of the least toxic things that we could take. I mean, just look at fizzy drinks. They were never meant to be ingested. Nothing fizzy was meant to be ingested. Thank you, Steve, for joining us. I'm just trying to see where you are, but it doesn't say. Maybe you can let me know. TJ is in Bakersfield. Amy, thank you for joining us. Doesn't say where you are. And Jessica is in California. If you'd like to join us, then jump on the chat. And you can message me. I'm asking the question if you would consider a new vaccine if in a few months' time they turn around and say this new strain will be rectified with this new vaccine. Are you up for another one? And maybe this is it now. Maybe we're just going to have to take vaccines all the time if we want to outlive this virus. It's 5 after 10. Thank you very much for joining us this morning here on Backchannel. Looking through your messages, taking a good look at what it is that you're feeling about this and whether or not this is something that you are concerned about, or maybe you've just gone back to your normal life. Because here in California, it's still a little bit, everyone's still very cautious, everyone's still wearing masks. But my family in England and London, they're like, no one's wearing masks, nobody cares. It's like the pandemic never happened. And it's a much smaller place. It's very interesting to me how different cultures react to government direction. And maybe we should talk a little bit about how we feel about the government. And maybe this is actually the whole problem. And all of the anti-vaxxers, they're not actually against the vaccine. They're actually against the government. They're actually more against being told what to do. They're more anti-authority. They just don't like authority. They would much rather be left to their own devices. And that's why people are taking ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. That's why people have reached out to these kind of available over-the-counter style drugs, thinking that they would rather be in control and take something that they have selected they take, rather than something the government wants them to take. I mean, do you not think that the makers of ivermectin are getting very, very rich? When you moan about Big Pharma, do you not think the makers of ivermectin are just rubbing their hands together and going, all these humans are taking a cattle deworming drug, and we're making a fortune? They're loving it. Are you kidding me? Where do you think ivermectin comes from? It doesn't grow out of the ground. It comes from a laboratory. It comes from a factory. It's Big Pharma. The same with hydroxychloroquine. Donald Trump had shares in hydroxychloroquine. Of course he was pushing it. But there's no evidence. I mean, they've been tested. These things have been tested. They just don't work. They just don't work. And if you have anecdotal evidence to say they do because you've taken it and you got better, that is not a peer-reviewed, proper case of a test. Where I think the minimum number of people they need to test is like 1,000 to see if something has efficacy. A qualitative research program. I mean, I took a risk getting my booster because at the time Moderna had only tested 174 people to test the efficacy of the booster. And I made a decision that 174 people seeing a positive reaction to a vaccine that wears off over time is good enough for me. And I made that decision. I went and got my booster. And then a week later, they started to say, we've tested it on more people and we've decided that we're going to recommend it to all adults, not just the over 65s. So I took a chance, and I fortunately chose the right course of action. In the same way that now I'm recommending to my family that they fly to the US now and don't wait 2 weeks. Because a lot can change in 2 weeks. And I understand that, the likelihood of a travel ban being put in place before they've tested this new strain on the vaccines is very slim. But for the sake of 2 weeks, is it worth taking a chance? So I was asking you this morning if you yourself would take another vaccine, a different vaccine from Moderna or Pfizer, one of the big ones, because these mRNA vaccines now, it's a new well, it's actually not a new technology. The technology is 20 years old or more. But it's the first time it's been used in mass vaccination like this. And it's going very well. 7 billion people have been vaccinated. If that's not a test, a qualitative research case study, then I don't know what is. How many people need to be saved from death before my racist landlord will finally get vaccinated? That's what I want to know. How many billions of people need to get a vaccine and survive and not get coronavirus before he's like, yeah, actually, no, maybe you're right. Maybe that does work. He cares more about the fact that Big Pharma, as he calls it, are making money than him getting vaccinated and therefore protecting other people. His argument is, I've already had COVID, and so what's the point in me getting vaccinated? It's like, that's not the advice. The official advice is that a vaccine is more protective than having had it before. Because having had it before doesn't stop you spreading it to other people. And also, you don't know how long your antibodies are going to last. At least with a vaccine, you know that you can get redosed every 6 months. It's 10 past 10. This is Backchannel. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Michael has just jumped on as well. Michael, you're very welcome to Backchannel this morning. It's the 26th of November, day after Thanksgiving. I probably ate enough yesterday to have fed a small family for a week. All that food is still living inside of me. It's very interesting to me, isn't it, that we live in a world now where consuming is still considered to be like a celebration. The celebration of consumption. It's very interesting to me that that's still a thing. And we haven't yet worked out that actually eating less is good for the planet. we still reward ourselves with chocolate and sweets and candy. That's a reward. Shouldn't a reward be planting a tree? Shouldn't that be a reward? Where we think to ourselves, you did great today. Go plant a tree. Or go do an act of kindness. That's a reward. But we reward ourselves with the most trivial things, all of which are contributing to carbon emissions and climate change. we're just like, we've got it all wrong. We've got it all upside down. I mean, I think back to how our ancestors lived in this kind of kibbutz scenario, where everybody lived on a large plot of land and they plowed the land and they had fruit and vegetables that came from the land and cattle that came from the land and chickens that made eggs from the land. And they didn't all have a car. They might have had one cart, horse and car, and they shared it. They shared it. And even in a modern kibbutz, these places still exist all over the world. The environment where you share your produce, you cook in large vats, so if they make a big soup, they're making one big soup for feeding 80 people. That's sustainable. That is sustainable living. And so you're never short of a babysitter. You want to go out that night, there's 79 other people. Because you're all living communally. And you're all eating communally. And therefore you talk because you're living communally. And not everybody has the same views. So you debate. But because you're living communally, you can't fall out with each other. So that encourages you to learn to have conversations in a way that encourages views and encourages analysis, and where people learn to respect somebody else's chance to talk. Take the conch. Are you holding the conch? Then you can talk. Now's your chance to talk. And we learn about seasons because, of course, of the harvest and agriculture. So we learn about the weather, and we learn about the seasons, and we learn about land, and we learn about the dirt, and we learn about what we need to survive. And that we don't need cheeseburgers, and that we don't need McNuggets, and we actually only really need the grain that comes from the sea. We only really need the plants that grow. And then none of them are going to need many doctors because they're not eating any toxins, because they're not using pesticides, and they're not using preservatives. And so actually the solution to all of our problems in the world is just living in a traditional way, the way humans first lived, from Neanderthal man right the way through to this early society where you lived off of the land and you lived communally. And then even like in the 40s and 50s, you know, like post-war, you still lived communally because the whole family would live in the house. Grandma would live upstairs, you'd have your aunt and uncle next door. So you only needed one car because you shared it and you had a system. And there was always someone to look after the kids, and there was always someone to cook, and you cooked communally. And then as a family, you'd all come and meet in whoever had the biggest living room or dining room, and you would sit and you would chat. How was your day? What do you need? How are you feeling? How's everything? Do you want some more soup? You break bread with people. Simple things. No one had to go off and play on their Xbox or go into their metaverse and have a whole second life. I mean, I don't know. I moved to America for a change, you know, to learn a new culture, to see how other people lived. And every time I visited here, I really liked it and I didn't want to go home. I was like, this is different. I never thought it was better. I just thought it was different. I think that's what is interesting to me, is differences, learning new things. And yesterday was Thanksgiving and people, you know, were giving thanks. No one really explained what Thanksgiving was to me. I just thought it was another opportunity to eat and to consume. And we toasted, you know, there was like 14 of us. We toasted, but we didn't really give thanks. I mean, I said I give thanks to a couple of people like individually when they were saying goodbye. They were so drunk, they didn't know what I was saying. So here we are, you know, we're living in a world where even traditions, because Thanksgiving, I think, it's like a pagan festival, right? It goes back a long, long way. And I'm sure if it was a pagan festival, it was probably connected to the harvest in some way. And here we are all these years later celebrating it in other ways. I mean, the first thing I did to my son when you know, he kind of woke up was to give him a gift. I bought him a little plastic monster truck for $3.99 that originated probably in China and has sat on a ship for like 6 weeks. First thing I did. Happy Thanksgiving. Here's a gift. Go play. This is kind of where it's at now. You know, that we kind of lose sight of the origins of these festivals. I mean, even Christmas. Look how Christmas changed. Christmas, I think, from memory, is celebrating the rebirth of Christ, right? Isn't it? Isn't that what it is? It's the I presume. Is it Jesus coming back or is it Jesus dying? I can't even remember. It was so long ago. Alison, nice to see you. Kathy, thank you for joining us. Michael, thank you for joining us. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony Davis. So, and then Father Christmas, you know, Santa Claus, I think he originated in Norway. He was green, famously green, and he was rebranded red by the Coca-Cola Company in the 1950s. Rebranded. Taken as his image was taken for the Coca-Cola Company, and of course they were red. He was green. Let's make him red. And then from then on, he became red all over the world, apart from in Norway, where he's still green. You're muted, Carla. I can't hear you, darling. You're muted. So do you think about these festivals and their origins still? Or do you feel like the tradition is just default now? You just default to these things? Alison, maybe you, when you have your family over, maybe you so focused on cooking and present giving that the origin has disappeared. Kathy, Michael, maybe you feel the same. You can message me via the web chat, of course, at backchannel.tv. And you can also just talk to your device in the usual way. You just turn to your Echo machine whether it be an Echo Show, ideally an Echo Show, where you can see me right now, and you just say the magic word, which is with the wake-up word, and then say, and then your message. That's how it works. It's 20 past 10. I also want to remind you, before I move on, that there are lots of shows that we have here on this Backchannel platform. Haley and Alison live, waking you up in the morning with lots of laughs and their one-star cinema review. We have Live Every Day with Liv Harrison, live from Texas, celebrating the little things in life with plenty of coffee. And also the charming and funny Hal Rudnick. He's next at 11 o'clock here on Backchannel. His show is called Your Pal Hal. So stick around for him, but you have me for another 45 minutes or so. Maybe 35 minutes. I've lost the ability to count because there's so much turkey inside me. It's a turkey replacement, actually. I didn't eat the real turkey. Kathy says yes. So what, you are so distracted with the present giving and with the food cooking that the origins of Christmas have disappeared? Because we're just asking this morning off the back of Thanksgiving if it's the case for you. That the actual kind of religious connotation, the faith-based connotation of these festivals, whether it be Thanksgiving or Christmas, still have any value for their origins, or whether now it's just become like a commercial Christmas for you. Alison says hi. Hi, Alison. Are you just trying out your Echo Show device? Is that what's happening? I think so. You just wake it up, then the word say, and then your message. Let's see what else we have here. I've got some very interesting stories to bring you, but they all seem to have disappeared from my screen. So I'll just spend a moment getting them back. I really feel like maybe we owe it to ourselves to be a little bit more thoughtful about these festivals. And if you are thinking about how Christmas is going to change this year because of the pandemic, or because of maybe not having enough money for gifts, or maybe you thought about that. Maybe you want to share with me how you're going to take that on. Deborah has got in touch. Is the US so different from England? Yeah, it's completely different. I mean, it's the same in some ways. It's also, we kind of look the same. But yeah, culturally, it's very different. Deborah, your surname's Rudnick. Does that mean you might be related to Hal, who's on next? I'm just asking. Just a question. It's just a theory. Such a great name, actually. So, I'd say England is very different. I mean, it's not different in terms of like how we celebrate Christmas. Obviously, we don't do Thanksgiving in the UK. That's not a thing. So we don't. Someone said to me yesterday, how are your family in England having Thanksgiving? And I'm like, they're not. It's not a thing. It's a regular day. They celebrate other things like the summer solstice. There's like some other pagan festivals that go on that they like to take advantage of. They go to Stonehenge and stuff like that. If you'd like to get involved, just like Deborah has, you can talk back to this show just by using your Echo Show device. Just say the wake-up word followed by say and then your message. You can also, if you're watching on YouTube, do what Deborah did. Just write in the comments section there and it will appear also here on my screen. And if not, you've got your phone handy or your browser on your laptop. Just type in backchannel.tv. And then, of course, the whole web chat will appear and you can message me, and it's very easy to do. So no excuse to not be involved, and anything you want to say and bring to the show, then I will share with everybody else, and then we'll be able to have a whole conversation about it. Yes, I'm Hal's mum back in New York. I knew it, Deborah, I knew it. I wonder if Hal knows that your mum is moonlighting and you're not watching your son's show, you're watching the show on before. I find Hal is like a lot more relaxed than me. I like sit upright like this, and I'm like on the precipice of a solitary single great idea. I wish I was a little bit more like Hal. He's got a much more of a kind of New York vibe. He just sits back and he's just like, Everything is going to be just fine. I'm like, I wish that was me. Anyway, he's a very nice looking boy. You did very well there, Deborah. Well done. Tell him I'm a fan. I think he lives in California, doesn't he? I think he lives nearby, I presume. Maybe you can let me know. Is he a neighbor of mine? I'm in Hollywood. Is he a neighbor? Thank you, Deborah. Deborah, I can't believe you're like the go-between between your son and me. He's on next. I'm here. I mean, maybe he should just sit here with me and we could do it in person. Is this room big enough for the both of us? Volume has joined the stream. Thank you very much, Volume, for joining us. Nice to know you're part of the show. I hope that's your name because it's such a brilliant name. When you were younger, did your parents tell you to turn it down a bit? Just a thought. It's 10:25. This is Backchannel, talking about the true origins of these festivals that we've been celebrating, a little bit like Thanksgiving yesterday. And I was saying that as a British person celebrating Thanksgiving, it didn't really occur to me that there was a reason for Thanksgiving. I just thought it was a chance to have a day off work and to overeat. But it turns out there is a whole history. Have a little drink here. These things are very clever. They keep a tea warm for hours, provided you close the lid, of course. There's me leaving it open. Let me just check some of your messages over here. Yes. Okay. All good. And then we've also been looking at coronavirus this morning, and this is off the back of this new strain that has been announced in South Africa. And we've been talking a little bit about it this morning and asking whether or not you would be prepared to get yet another vaccine if they would have to kind of come up with one. Hal, if Hal's mum Deborah is in New York, then when did you last see him? Like, have you not seen him because of coronavirus, not wanting to travel? Just wondered. Maybe you can let me know in the usual way. No, I'm doing a warm-up. Oh, I see. You're doing a warm-up. Before you watch Hal, you're doing a warm-up with me. Well, that's all I am, really. I'm just the warm-up man. I'm like the pre-show. There was just the pre-show entertainment before the big show. The big show's at 11 with Hal Rudnick, your pal Hal, here at 11 a.m. on the West Coast, or 2 p.m. Eastern. An advisory panel of the World Health Organization classified a new COVID-19 variant first detected in South Africa as a highly transmissible virus of concern and named it Omicron. Oh, it's been given a name already. Wow, so Delta has given way to Omicron. The announcement today from the United Nations Health Agency marks the first time in months that the WHO has classified a COVID-19 variant as such. The Delta variant, which has become the world's most prevalent, is in the same category. Sent a chill through much of the world today as nations raced to halt air travel. Markets fell sharply, and scientists held emergency meetings to weigh the exact risks, which were largely unknown. Medical experts, including the World Health Organization, warned against any overreaction before the variant that originated in southern Africa was better understood. But a jittery world feared the worst nearly 2 years after COVID-19 emerged and triggered a pandemic that has killed more than 5 million people around the globe. We must move quickly and at the earliest possible moment, British Health Secretary Sajid Javid told lawmakers. Excuse me. There was no immediate indication whether the variant was more transmissible or causes more disease. But with other variants, some infected people display no symptoms, according to experts in South Africa. Even though some of the genetic changes appear worrisome, it was unclear if the new variant would pose a significant public health threat. Some previous variants, like the Beta variant, initially concerned scientists but did not spread very far. So why is this one different? Why is this one a cause for concern? Why am I having to reach out to my family who are coming here in 2 weeks' time and say, come now, just come now, don't wait? It's concerning, but that's the reality, isn't it? That you have to make alternative plans. And if you want to see people and they are going to close things down, then maybe now's the time. But, you could argue that it's selfish to travel earlier because you might be bringing the variant with you. Who knows if it's only just in South Africa, Deborah, are you still with us? Just checking. Just checking you're still with us. I think she is. She's watching on YouTube. You can do the same. You just go to, you can search my name on YouTube, Anthony Davis, and then Backchannel. And then you'll see the live feed. And you'll also see old episodes if you've had enough of watching today. And then you're like, I think I want to watch yesterday's. Well, actually, don't watch yesterday's because it doesn't exist. But if you want to watch previous episodes, then they're all available for you there on YouTube as well. Very easy to do. Volume's with us, Alison's with us, Kathy, Michael, Steve, TJ, Amy, Jessica. Very pleased to know that you're here. Hi, Ken as well. Lots of people interacting. Hal visits often as he had an interview in New York. Ah, I see. That's great to know, Deborah. Thank you for sharing all this. I wonder if Hal is okay with the fact that you and I are starting to talk about him behind his back. I'm sure he'll be okay with it. But I'm a very big fan of his. I watch his show every day, and I would like to think that he watches this show as well. But the chances are he's preparing for his own show, so he might not have the time to watch this show. I mean, I'm not insecure. It's fine if he doesn't. I just wanted to make the point that I like his show. It says here, even though some of the genetic changes appear worrisome in this new strain, it was unclear if the new variant would pose a significant public health threat. 27-nation European Union imposed a temporary ban on air travel from southern Africa. Stocks tumbled in Asia, Europe, and the United States. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped more than 1,000 points. The S&P 500 index was down 2.3%, on pace for its worst day since February. And the price of oil plunged nearly 12%. The last thing we need is to bring in a new variant that will cause even more problems, said the German health minister. The member nations of the EU have experienced a massive spike in cases recently. Can you believe that here we are, 2 years after the pandemic began, and we are still talking about it like it's a brand new thing? 2 years later, we're still talking about it like, oh, it's just starting, with this new variant, which now has a name. Omicron. I'm just going to send this article to my mother. I'm keeping the whole family informed. There we go. Done. The EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, very well-dressed person, by the way, she said flights will have to be suspended until we have a clear understanding about the danger posed by this new variant, and travellers returning from this region should respect strict quarantine rules. She insisted on extreme caution, warning that mutations could lead to the emergence and spread of even more concerning variants of the virus that could spread worldwide within a few months. Says Belgium became the first European Union country to announce a case of the variant. It has yet to be detected in the United States, says Dr. Anthony Fauci, the government's top infectious disease expert. Abroad, the variant seems to be spreading at a reasonably rapid rate, it says. And although it may be more transmissible and resistant to vaccines than other variants, we don't know that for sure right now. Showing how complicated the spread of a variant can be, the Belgian case involved a traveller who returned to Belgium from Egypt on the 11th of November, but did not become sick with mild symptoms until Monday, according to Professor Mark van Ranst, who works for the scientific group overseeing the Belgian government's COVID-19 response. Israel is one of the most vaccinated countries. Oh, apparently Hal does watch me. And I told him that you mentioned him and he was very pleased. Aww. Deborah, you're so sweet. I love the fact that you're like the go-between here. This is so kind of you. It's 10:34. This is Backchannel. Hal will be here in 20 minutes, just so you know. He's probably preparing right now by having a nice candlelit bath with some bath bombs and just getting himself into the right place spiritually for Backchannel. Yes, they announced on Friday it also detected its first case of the new variant in a traveller who returned from Malawi. The traveller and 2 other suspected cases were placed in isolation. You see, my feeling is that the testing, because it's not so widespread, they only test you when you get on a flight. They don't test you when you get off a flight. So how do they know that it hasn't spread everywhere already? That's the thing that I don't understand. It says after a 10-hour overnight trip, passengers aboard KLM Flight 598 from Cape Town, South Africa, to Amsterdam were held on the edge of the runway Friday morning at Schiphol Airport for 4 hours pending special testing. You see, they do test when you get off the plane, but only special testing. Passengers aboard a flight from Johannesburg were also being isolated and tested. They said it's ridiculous. If we didn't catch the dreaded bugger before, we're catching it now, said passenger Francesca De Medici, a Rome-based art consultant who was on the flight. Very interesting. Some experts said the variant's emergence illustrated how rich countries hoarding vaccines threatens to prolong the pandemic. Well, this is what I was saying earlier. This is my personal view. That the rich countries take all the vaccines, the poor countries then are more likely to see transmissibility in communities, and if there's more transmissibility, then there'll be more variants because there's more opportunity for the virus to mutate. I presume that's the science. I mean, it seems like common sense to me. Nikita, hello, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Vanita, great to know you're here. Volume's here, Kathy's here, Michael, Allison. So many people joining us. I think these people are just showing up because it's nearly time for your pal Hal. So this is the point I was making about the poor countries having fewer vaccines and vaccination because the rich countries took them. So there's something like 82% of Americans are now vaccinated, right? I think a full vaccination, it's nearer like 64, 65%. A full vaccination, 64%. A first vaccination or a vaccine, a J&J single shot, let's say, over 80% of the US population. Just guess what percentage of Africans are vaccinated. Just guess. Correct. It's less than 6%. Less than 6% of Africans are vaccinated because they can't get the vaccine. Because the vaccine has already been hoarded by wealthy countries. We have more vaccine here in America than we need. We could vaccinate the country 3 times over here. And yet in Africa, 6%. So, Biden said this himself. Biden said we've got 3 times more vaccine than we need. He said it himself. He did it in a press conference. I've heard him say it. That they didn't want to get into a situation that they were in previously where there was, with the PPE, where there wasn't enough equipment. So they are overstocking. And that's why they have a program here in the US now where they are starting to share vaccine. Sending vaccine abroad. But only 6% of people in Africa are vaccinated. And millions of health workers and vulnerable populations have yet to receive a single dose. And those conditions can speed up the spread of virus, offering more opportunities for it to evolve into a dangerous variant. This is one of the consequences of inequity in vaccine rollouts, and why grabbing a surplus vaccine as a rich country will inevitably rebound on all of us at some point. And that's not my view. That is the view of the senior research fellow in global health at Britain's University of Southampton. He, in fact, urged, his name is Michael Hare. He urged the group of 20 leaders to go beyond vague promises and actually deliver on their commitments to share doses. Rowan, hello, thank you for joining us. It's 20 minutes to 11. This is Backchannel. And if you want to get in touch, you can just message me. You can just use backchannel.tv on your website, on your phone, or on your laptop or something. Or you're very welcome just to talk to your Echo Show. If you've got an Echo Show, the Amazon speaker that has a screen on it, just say the wake-up word followed by say, and then your message, and it'll come straight through to me here at Backchannel. And if you're watching on YouTube, as your pal Hal's mum is right now, she says, terrific in-depth review of the current news. Well, that's right. That's what we're doing. And that's what we do every day. We do a terrific, I wouldn't call it terrific myself, but I'm very grateful for the compliment. A terrific in-depth review of the current news. Because this is something that affects all of us. It's not just like one or two of us. This is something that is important for the whole world right now. In fact, everybody should be talking about it. I mean, arguably, I'd say we should be talking about nothing else. How to protect ourselves, how to stay safe, how to ensure that we are going to protect our communities. And yet my racist landlord refuses to get vaccinated because he thinks that it's Big Pharma told me I drunk the Kool-Aid. That's what he said to me. So, you know, you have to ask the question though, and maybe it's about time that we maybe just don't take no for an answer anymore and double down. You know, previously I was the kind of person I was like, okay, do whatever you want, do whatever you want. But the more I read about Africa and hearing about these new strains, it makes me feel like, well, maybe I need to fight a little harder, stand up to people a bit more. It's 19 minutes before 11. This is Backchannel. I'm Anthony. If you have a different view, then you're very welcome to share it with me. So you can send a message. You can send a message on the web chat at backchannel.tv or just talk to your device. Easy. Just say the magic word, wake up, then say, and then your message. Hi, Debbie. Thank you for joining us. Debbie's in Florida. Rowan's with us, Vanita's with us, Volume's here, Alison, Kathy, Michael, Jessica, Steve, TJ, Amy. Nice to know that you're all part of Backchannel this morning. It's the 26th of November, which means it's the day after Thanksgiving. Yesterday was a very big day for a lot of people. It was nice that it was a day off. Did you get a day off yesterday? If you spent the day with your family, or maybe you still wanted to be very COVID cautious as people were last year. You know, last year we were encouraged not to have a Thanksgiving. But I think people really kind of rebounded against that advice this year, and they were just like, okay, we had a year off, we're going for it. I mean, I did. We had 12 people, and it was wonderful. Nobody wore a mask, everybody was vaccinated, we had the windows and doors open, nice breeze coming through, and we felt safe. But that's because we're vaccinated. That's why we felt safe, I guess, subconsciously. And I had invited people who previously, in like a year ago, before they were vaccinated, they were like, I'm not going out. Oh, don't touch me. I'll talk to you through the car window. And now we seem to have found this sense of security because of the vaccine. So we've been looking at the WHO classifying a new variant as highly transmissible. Then they've now given it the name Omicron. It doesn't really roll off the tongue like Delta, does it? They should have called it United or American. Just to get that kind of full set of legacy airline carriers here in the US. They're calling it a suspicious variant. We don't know if it's a very dangerous variant yet. This is Belgium talking about it now. It's yet to be detected here in the US, said Anthony Fauci, the US government's top infectious disease expert. Abroad, the variant seems to be spreading at a reasonably rapid rate. And although it may be more transmissible and resistant to vaccines than other variants, we don't know that for sure right now. Showing how complicated the spread of a variant can be, the Belgian case involved a traveller who returned to Belgium from Egypt on the 11th of November, but did not become sick with mild symptoms until Monday, according to the professor Mark van Ranst, who works for the scientific group overseeing the Belgian government's COVID-19 response. Israel is actually one of the most vaccinated countries. They announced on Friday it also detected its first case of the new variant in a traveller who returned from Malawi. So we're talking about Africa and why poorer nations, and in this case continents, have much lower rates of vaccination. And of course, it's to do with money, isn't it? The vaccines go to the highest bidder. And in fact, there was a time when here in America we were overpaying for vaccine to build up stocks. paying more than the market rate. California, as a state, paid more than the market rate for PPE. In fact, at one point, I seem to remember that Gavin Newsom, the governor, announced that they were going to spend something like, how much was it? It was like nearly $1 billion. It was an insane amount of money on personal protective equipment to give to hospitals and to frontline workers and to stockpile. And I was like, whoa, this is serious. But they have the means. California's the wealthiest of all of the states. It's the 5th richest economy in the world, California. So they can spend big when they need to. And rates in California now, coronavirus rates, are very good comparatively. It's a sign of how concerned Wall Street has become. The market's so-called fear gauge, known as VIX, jumped 48% to a reading of 26.991. That's the highest reading for the volatility index since January, before vaccines were widely distributed. Speaking before the EU announcement, Dr. Michael Ryan, who's head of emergencies at WHO, warned against a knee-jerk response. He's amazing, Michael Ryan. I don't know if you've seen him on any of the press conferences, like a big English guy. And whenever he speaks, I'm like, wow, I really trust you. He's head of emergencies at the World Health Organization. Because Tedros, is the boss. And Tedros, to me, always looks a little bit flummoxed. But Michael just seems to have this kind of calming influence, and that's what we need. And Fauci's the same. Michael Ryan, Dr. Michael Ryan, he's amazing. He's a big guy. He always sits on the press conferences at the WHO. Wonderful man. But yeah, he speaks with an English accent. I presume he's British. But yeah, he's based at the WHO now. And he's been doing the job for a while. And, you always, if ever, I don't know if many people watch the WHO briefings. I do, because I'm a bit of a nerd for stuff like this. But maybe people just don't watch them enough. I mean, isn't it crazy that, we don't... Maybe people don't understand the value of the World Health Organization. How it is that we have this non-political, non-governmental organization that basically sits in the middle of the world, changes its chairman, every few years. And it's a culmination of multiple countries bringing their best expertise together to deal with things like the pandemic. It's the World Health Organization. It is for world health, because health doesn't stop at land borders. The same diseases are prevalent in America as they are in Eastern Europe or the Far East or in Siberia. I mean, that's what humanity is all about. We're all fallible to the same illness, and consequently, we do need a World Health Organization. So when we refer to the WHO, they work with the CDCs in various countries, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And just think about that for a moment. Here in America, Fauci at the CDC, we have a Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And maybe before coronavirus, back in November 2019, maybe you'd never heard of a CDC. Maybe it never occurred to you that we have a Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and that every country has one. More than one. Maybe it never occurred to you that there were laboratories testing viruses and their transmissibility before you heard about the one in Wuhan that some people blame for being the cause of the virus. But it's the job of these laboratories to do exactly the opposite. They don't leak viruses, they test for them. And they work with the CDC and they work with the WHO and they enable us to be safe. And there are plenty of diseases that have come and gone that we have been protected from because of the work of these organizations that have been prevented from becoming pandemics and prevented from becoming epidemics because of the work that they do. And that's why we ignore them at our peril. This is Backchannel. It's 10 to 11. You've got me for another 5 minutes. We'll just continue this conversation just a little bit because it's very important that we, spend the rest of the day thinking about this new variant and how it might affect us and what we can do to prevent its spread. And should we be working on the assumption that actually it's already here? And maybe we need to mask back up again, and maybe we need to not go out again. I mean, have these thoughts. And don't wait necessarily for the government to kind of come up with new rules on lockdowns. Do it yourself. Just do it yourself. The UK banned flights from South Africa and 5 other southern African countries at noon on Friday and announced that anyone who had recently arrived from those countries would be asked to take a coronavirus test. Germany said its flight ban could be enacted as soon as Friday night. Spain said flights returning from South Africa will only be able to transport German citizens home, and travellers will need to go into quarantine for 14 days whether they're vaccinated or not. Germany has seen record case daily numbers in recent days and on Thursday surpassed 100,000 deaths from COVID-19. And Italy's health ministry announced measures to ban entry from anyone who has been in 7 southern African nations: South Africa, Lesotho, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Namibia, and Eswatini. You've even heard of Eswatini? There you go, past 14 days. One of the smaller African nations, I presume. Never heard of it. The Netherlands and the Czech Republic plan similar measures. Japanese government have also announced that Japanese nationals travelling from those places will have to quarantine at government-dedicated accommodations for 10 days. South African government said the UK decision to temporarily ban South Africans from entering seems to have been rushed, citing the fact that the WHO has yet to recommend the next steps. And here in the US, Dr. Fauci, the public health officials, they were today, or are today, talking with South African colleagues. Fauci said, we want to find out, scientist to scientist, exactly what is going on. So there's a technical group meeting today at the World Health Organization to assess this variant. It's called B11529, but it's been given this Greek alphabet letter, so it's going to be referred to as Omicron. So you will hear the word Omicron everywhere over the next few weeks. Everywhere. And it'll become as part of our vernacular as Delta. It's a shame that I have to sit here and make these announcements, to have these conversations with you. It would be much nicer to be celebrating Thanksgiving and going, well, isn't it nice to say goodbye to coronavirus? Wasn't that a fun 2 years? But actually, you might argue that if the mutations are really happening now, then it's really only just getting started. And that there will potentially be more division as a result of it, which is why I am pleased that I'm vaccinated. Deborah says, you're not a warm-up. You're doing a great job on the news for a senior like me. Oh, Deborah, don't do yourself a disservice. There's nothing senior about you. You can't be more than, 45? Jessica, Debbie, Roanne, Vanita, Volume, Alison, Kathy, Michael. Thank you very much for spending your morning with me here on Backchannel. My name's Anthony Davis. There's a whole bunch of shows right across the Backchannel network that you can watch and listen to via YouTube, or you can also, of course, watch on your Echo Show device. That's like the native platform for Backchannel, where you can talk to your screen and then just interact with the hosts. It's the only place you can do that, where you can talk to the hosts without pressing any buttons. It's very clever. We're very proud of it. I will come back on Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific. That's noon Eastern. And we'll get the chance to talk all over again. And maybe there'll be more news about Omicron on Monday. Hopefully better news. not worse news. And I'll update you on whether or not my mum managed to change her flights and come here sooner to escape a travel ban. It's 5 minutes to 11. Your pal Hal is here next on Backchannel. I'll see you on Monday. Bye for now.